We're good.
Okay, today is Monday, July 1st, and it is 5:04 PM, and I'm gonna call to order the Personnel, Finance, and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting. I'm just going to read this, that there is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our School District of Menominee Falls, a YouTube site. We are in Village Hall, upper level conference room 3344/45 at West 156 North 8480 Pilgrim Road. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Okay, great. So first item on the agenda is minutes approval. I would need a motion to approve the minutes from the June 10th, 2024 meeting.
A motion.
I've got a motion, can I have a second?
I don't know if I was at that meeting, was I at that meeting?
Yeah.
I was, alright, then yes, I'll.
Okay, I've got a motion from Mr. Wappert, a second from Ms. Holzman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to discussion items. The first item for discussion is the 2024-25 preliminary budget. I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, thank you guys all for attending tonight's meeting. Every year at around this time, we finalize our preliminary budget for the upcoming fiscal year, which oddly enough started today. But this is kind of a good benchmark to show you guys where we're at in the budgeting process. This is our preliminary budget, so this can and will change. You'll hear me talk about that a lot in this presentation. But I'll go through this brief slideshow that I have for you, and then we'll dive into our budget document, the packet that I have sent in front of you. We'll go through kind of a high-level overview of some of the key pieces of that. So to start, just going through the agenda, I'm gonna go through first our revenue limit formula. This is the big formula in school finance. We'll go through that at a high level before diving into the tax levy and mill rate that we are projecting for 24-25, as well as some key budget assumptions and updates. And then we'll go into that budget packet before any discussion and questions, and I'll talk about next steps for you guys. So, the revenue limit formula. This is a huge factor in how we budget. You can see up here, this is a very watered down version of that formula. Our resident membership FTE is a 3-year average that is calculated on the revenue limit worksheet. We take that number multiplied by our per pupil amount to get our total revenue limit authority. So some of these items are known to this point, being the second year of a state biennial budget. Some are not known. So we obviously don't know how many kids are going to show up on third Friday. That is an assumption. We are projecting a flat membership this upcoming year, as we've seen small increases over the last couple school years. We want to be conservative, so that resident membership FTE is reflective of a flat membership in 24-25. That per pupil amount is something that we do know. So last year was the first year of a state biennial budget, which saw a $325 increase per pupil for the next 400 years through some creative vetoing. So that again is shown in 24-25. That will be $12,081 received per pupil, which is that second half of the formula, giving us just over $46 million in revenue limit authority. That leads us right into the property tax levy. So this spreadsheet, or this graph I should say, is one that you've probably seen before with the CE and Rec project. It hasn't changed, but I'll just go through it really quick one more time. This is the total tax levy over the last 5 years. As you can see, we've been hovering under the $40 million mark, and each color of each graph is reflective of a different fund. So school districts operate on fund accounting. The blue chunk of every graph is Fund 10, our general fund. The red portion is our debt service fund, or Fund 39, and then the green portion is our community service fund, or Fund 80. So again, in 24-25, you can see that red chunk of the graph switch to green due to that CE and Rec project with the defeasance piece, and that is reflected in 24-25 with about 2% increase in our total tax.
And just a reminder to the board members and those listening, that difference in the slides from 23-24 to 24-25 is approximately $3.3 million in savings.
Is it interest savings?
Interest savings to the taxpayers. So that piece is representative of that sort of savings, because we're prepaying debt and not necessarily having to do that this year, meaning pay debt.
So we get a break from debt payments, which is unique, but we also get a cool expansion to C and rec, so that is shown again in that total tax levy bar. The preliminary mill rate, as you can see, has been dropping over the last 5 years. We're projecting that to decrease again to 680. Those colors are again representative of the different funds, showing that defeasance in 24, 25.
So staying on this slide, the 691 to 680, just note we're decreasing the mill rate, effective tax generally, different for every person. We're decreasing that while not paying debt, defeasing, saving the interest payments, and still getting that building project.
So then we move into some of the key assumptions that we use to budget and are included in this upcoming budget cycle. So again, some of these pieces were known due to the state biennial budget. That being the revenue limit increase of $325, our per pupil categorical aid adjustment staying the same as last year, as well as our special ed reimbursement rate. So any qualified Fund 27 expenditures for special education were reimbursed from the state at a clip of 33%. That is gonna be staying the same in 24-25. Some other things to note, again, the flat membership, we're projecting in 24-25. Fund 38 is eliminated. We have made our final payment of Fund 38 this last spring, which is great news. The CE and Rec project impact to Funds 39 and 80 are included in this budget, as well as the end of ESSER. So that chapter can finally be closed over a couple of years of planning and coordinating those claims. That will be completed at the end of this fiscal year.
So a previous school board, just a reminder to Fund 38, Fund 38 is non-referendum debt. So previous school boards, years ago, made a decision about X amount of $1 million in debt that is essentially sitting in 38, which is non-referendum debt. 39 is referendum debt. So they're both debt payments, but they're different reasons.
And really what that does is it frees up future dollars in Fund 10, because we don't have to levy for those payments.
That's right,
So,
that's right.
also in this budget is continuing the current open enrollment program. This budget is not reflective of any new open enrollment seats. If that were to change, we could always revisit that, but I wanted to make sure we were staying status quo there. We do have a busing increase that we are budgeting for. School districts across the state are seeing this, really across the country. We have budgeted about a 10% increase in busing. We are in the midst of negotiating final details with Johnson Bus for our upcoming contract. But that increase is reflected in this budget, as well as our increase in business insurance and utilities. So a lot of those inflationary pressures are being felt in this budget, and those are some of the key items that we wanted to note. The equalized value of the school district of Menominee Falls is a key factor in determining the mill rate. We have estimated this at 4%, which over the last couple of years, it's been upwards of 11%. So this could be small, but we wanted to be conservative because years prior to that, it's been hovering around the 4 to 5% mark for equalized value. But just so you know, that is what is included in this budget.
So the equalized value thing at 4%, I mean, we believe it's extremely conservative, which we're pretty confident it'll be above of that. So the higher the equalized value is, the more money the district will have available.
And lower the mill rate.
Cool.
So you said last year was 11%, but the year prior to that was 4 and 5%?
There were some other factors that made it that high. We believe that's artificially high, so
For last year?
for last year, so
Okay.
we're projecting 4 to 5.
And we'll go into that a little bit more in detail in the budget packet. Okay, and then some other updates, just to let you know as far as staffing goes, our compensation that's included in this budget, all positions received an increase ranging from 2% to 4.12% or CPI. We were also able to increase our teaching staff by 4.36 FTE, which is always a good thing. And with all of those updates and assumptions, we are happy to present a balanced budget to you today.
The only thing that I'll add to that is of the increase of 4.36 FTE, just keep in mind that we added, meaning this board and myself, along with the staff, Leah and others, we added 3 teachers, after my hire in July last year. We maintained those teachers, and this 4.36 is beyond that.
And we meet all the requirements for the new Act 20, with the
Absolutely.
literacy teacher.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, we already had teachers.
Yes.
In place already, yeah.
In place already.
We didn't need to hire anyone else.
No.
We actually already had last year early childhood
Yep.
literacy coaches in Shady and Via.
It's a good
So,
question. but-
We were actually a little ahead of this act,
Yep.
fortunately, it
Nice,
seems.
it's good to be ahead.
Yes.
Okay, now we're gonna dive into the meat and potatoes, the budget packet that I have in front of you. This will look very similar to past budgets, it's the same layout, but I wanted to go through at a high level, each section of this packet. So if you wanna look into that, on page 3 of your packet, you'll see the proposed budget approval and publication. This is, out of all of the pages in this packet, this is the only page that the board will approve. This is a DPI formatted document, outlining the different funds and the total tax levy that you will be approving in August. So, again, this is broken down by fund, so we have our general fund, Fund 10, Special Projects Fund, which consists of Fund 21 and 27, Debt Service Funds, Funds 38 and 39, Food Service Fund 50, Community Service Fund 80. But the columns that you see here, we have our 22-23 audited financials. So you'll see where those landed at the end of the 22-23 fiscal year. Our 23-24 budget is in here, as well as our proposed budget for 24-25. Now, the reason we don't have 23-24 financials is because we aren't done with our audit yet. So once we have those, we'll make sure that the board has looked in on how we landed. But that is the reason we have 23-24 budget included in here. Now you can see, starting with beginning and ending fund balance in the general fund, there's no change because we are presenting a balanced budget. I'll go down this document and kind of point out some key pieces that I found to be noteworthy to you. Starting on line 5, we have our local sources, and that's mainly consisted of property taxes. So again, just under $35 million that will be a big portion of that is our property taxes. Moving down to line 9, our federal sources, this is all of our federal grant money. Okay, and you can see a huge decrease in that going from 2.5 million to 318,000. That is reflective of ESSER being eliminated. So we will no longer be counting on those dollars, and that's reflected in that line item. Special Projects Fund, again, is Fund 21, which is our student activity fund, and special education. Both of those budgets are balanced, and those are reflected in here. Our debt service fund, you can see there's a pretty big change in the fund balance. 23-24, again, this is the Fund 38 and 39. At the end of last year, we had just about $13.5 million in fund balance. 24-25 budget, we have 1.3 million. Well, that is due to the defeasance. So our 12.4 million roughly dollars of defeasance is reflected in this fund balance, which again was part of that CE and Rec project funding. Capital Projects Fund, we don't have any revenues and expenditures budgeted, and we haven't for many years, so I'm gonna move down to food service. Our food service fund is budgeted to be balanced in 24-25. In 23-24, we had budgeted a deficit because we had some large, big ticket items related to kitchen equipment that we wanted to make sure that fund balance was utilized for. We don't plan to have any large purchases in Fund 50 in 24-25. And because of that, we are budgeting balanced in Fund 50. And then the Community Service Fund, again, is Fund 80. So the revenue and expenses increased by about $5 million. And that again is as a result of the CE and Rec project and the additional levy of $5 million in Fund 80. All in all, we moved down to the proposed property tax levy. We have broken down by fund that tax levy. So if you remember back to those graphs with the different colors, these are the numbers that go behind that. So $33,319,802 in Fund 10 for the levy. We will not be levying in our debt service fund due to that defeasance. And then our community service fund levy will be increasing by $5 million again for that CE Rec project. for a total levy of $39,339,102, which is about a 2% increase from the prior year. So out of all of these documents, this is the one that you will be approving in August. Are there any questions before I get into the supplemental information?
Yeah, I think the line 9, the federal sources, that was a good point to kind of draw, eyes to. With the elimination of the ESSER funds and federal dollars, we still do have some federal dollars coming in, about $318,000, which is not a lot, but that is consistent with the position of the federal government and public education.
Is that are we typical, or like do most school districts in the state of Wisconsin, or maybe in southeastern Wisconsin, have minimal federal?
So I will say
Dollars,
this
ESSER.
is just our general fund, so our Fund 10 federal revenues.
Well,
We
good
also
point.
have Fund 20 flow through,
Special education,
special education grant, and preschool special education grant.
good
It
point.
is not reflected in this 318,000. That's only like title grants, Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 make up that $318,000. We do have other funds that receive federal dollars, but it's about $1.2 million, I would say, that we receive from the federal government
Sure.
outside of ESSER.
Line 8, last year we got, looks like 20 million from the state, and now we're projected to get 17, is that because of drop of enrollment?
No, it's tied directly to our defeasance and those aidable dollars. So I'd be happy to send you a detailed spreadsheet of how that all works. But another piece I wanna note with the equalization aid, there's a huge unknown with this number, and that's MPS. We have no idea how that's gonna impact our equalization aid and where we fall in the
Okay.
bucket. So this number is, I think, a safe number at this point, but it's also a number that can and will change once we find out what happens with MPS.
So if you say it's safe, you think it could increase?
I think it could increase.
Okay.
And we actually, today was we received our aid estimate, which was slightly higher than this.
Oh, okay,
It's an estimate, so
sure, don't hold it,
Yeah.
Then I
I'm
have-
careful about that.
So when you say that there's special education federal dollars, is that part of the 33% that we get reimbursed, or that's on top? So that's from the state, but it's not like the feds give it to the state who gives it to us, it's like
The 33% is our, I don't wanna get too into accounting, but it's our 011 and 019 costs, so non-grant expenditures that are allowable. We receive 33% back from the state.
Mhm.
The federal dollars are matched to us completely. So in flow through, in preschool, any expenditure that's allowable, we receive 100% of. So that revenue is on top of the 33% reimbursement.
Yeah, that's right on. Right on.
Okay, if we're good with the publication document, I'll move into our supplemental information. Now, the rest of this packet, again, is more just to be transparent and kind of get into the details of our budget. I'm gonna try to be high level on it, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and let me know. So section 1 is our tax levy and tax rate schedule. A lot of this information is gonna be repetitive from the prior slide. So you can see our total taxes in our general fund and community service fund with that total levy at $39 million. One piece that I just wanna point out here is line 8, our equalized value. Again, is that 4% number that we have budgeted. This can and will change, and the higher the equalized value, the lower the mill rate. So we will have that equalized value number October 15th,
that's provided by the state.
that's provided by the state.
And we say that going into annual meeting, and then any motions we make, we keep putting a small asterisk on this. Because our annual meeting's in September, and we still don't know that number, so it's like a month later, it gets
Then
finalized.
we bring it to the board and say the number is final, this is what the number is.
I just know that's a common question during the annual meeting.
Yeah.
Why don't we have it final, so.
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
Yep.
Yeah, this exact budget is the one that the board will approve at the annual meeting. So, So part of that mill rate again is on row 12, you'll see the equalized property taxes. It's a calculation using the mill rate. We have the example here of a home that's valued at $310,000 with a mill rate of $680 would have equalized property taxes of just the school district portion of about $2,100. Again, very preliminary data right there, but that would be the formula that any of our community members could use. Mill rate times the property tax, or the valuation of the home, giving you the property taxes.
I like that home example. I think it's good.
It was at $250,000 for a long time.
Until the assessment.
And, well, we bumped it up because we didn't think it was, our
Reasonable
home values have been
number, yeah.
rising so much, and this might even be low as
I
well
was gonna
too,
say,
but
probably, I'd be interested to see what our median
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and then be able to leverage that from a home price standpoint.
that would
It's
be.
good enough, I like that you increased it, so.
Yeah, it's a good representation
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
taxes going down, actually.
So then in the bottom section is our fund balance schedule, broken up by fund, which again mirrors that prior page. You will see the drop in fund balance. Again, that's the defeasance. So it's an alarming number, but that is a direct correlation from that project. And then those graphs again showing the property taxes and the mill rate over the last handful of years. The next page breaks down our revenues by source, so where we're getting the revenues from. Again, I'll just go through very high level, a couple pieces I wanna note. The first one is line 9, our interest income. So in 23-24, we budgeted $403,000 of interest. To date, we have about $1.1 million of interest. That is because of the high rates and the amount of money that we had in our fund balance. So we've seen that as a very good revenue generator. We wanted to reflect an increase in that budget, also noting that 12 million of those dollars are no longer because of the defeasance. So we kind of hedged that by going with a $200,000 increase in interest income. Moving down to line 20 is that equalization aid that we were talking about with the NPS impact, as well as the defeasance. That number is very gray right now, but that has a direct correlation on many big ticket items in this budget. And then line 24 again is the federal grants dropping to $183,000 due to ESSER. The next page is moving into our Fund 10 expenditures. And one thing I always like to note with any school district budget is the majority of our expenses are our people. Salaries and benefits make up about 75% of our budget every year. And those increases that you saw in the slideshow are reflected in this budget. Line 60 is our people and employee travel, so that's our transportation increase, at $2.2 million. Moving down to line 73, you can see our non-instructional software in 23-24, we had budgeted at 1.3 million. Now it decreased about $1 million. We had a tech computer refresh that we were able to accommodate in 23-24 that we will no longer need to budget for.
I'm sorry, what line was it?
It was line 73.
So,
I think a nice number just to jump in for a quick couple seconds. Line 52, medical dental insurance, 4.157 million. So that's a substantial investment by the board and the community to medical and dental insurance for our staff.
And it's close to 100,000 less than last year.
We had some savings with the tiered plan that Leah put into place with her team and the board approved. But we also increased dental insurance for the first time for support staff. And we're looking to expand some things as well as we roll into October. I know we have a plan to start coming with some post-employment benefits, which wouldn't hit this line item. It would be a different line item, but we'll be coming to that through this committee.
Yeah, to offset the astronomical increases that happen to health costs every year. We went to our tiered plan, which has projected savings of about $15 million to help offset the about 6 to 8% estimated cost increase of our overall healthcare benefits. So that we did not have to raise premiums or deductibles or any of those things for staff, so this was our seventh year straight with no increases to any of our benefit costs. And then through some of those additional remaining savings, we were able to offer the dental to our educational assistants, bring in NICE healthcare, the on-site and virtual healthcare option, and then offer that one-time HSA to our staff who are on our benefits,
I have no
all
saying
at a,
tomorrow.
all at a cost neutral, plus some estimated savings.
Did you say for 7 straight years there's been no increased cost? to
Yeah,
healthcare?
this will be our seventh
To
Going into
premiums,
network,
out of pocket.
to any, to premiums, deductibles, out of pocket,
But
all
we've
of those.
added services, we've added
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff.
I have NICE coming in tomorrow for me.
Yeah, it's great, I mean, so there have been, yeah, for the last 7, well, quite honestly, for healthcare, it's for the last 7 calendar years, you know, because they work on a January 1. Our employees have seen no additional costs, to them for our benefits.
Awesome.
And no change to, up until this year, no changes at all. This year, we did have the tiered, change, which is really just for provider, to get the best, you know, obviously for packaging. But we did not change our coverage of actual services. So if you need a new hip or whatever, you have to have heart surgery, the cost of the actual services specifically did not change. It was changed based on the tier level provider you saw. So if you go to Freighter, Aurora and Children's Hospital, you saw no difference in costs. If you chose to go to a tier 2 or a completely out of network provider, then you would see some possible additional costs, but those were made aware to upfront. And UMR will work with you to try to find a tier 1 provider, if you originally had a tier 2 provider for that, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So if you wanna turn to the next page, these are Fund 10 expenditures, just a couple other pieces I wanted to note. That increase in insurance and judgments, again, is our increase in workers' comp, property insurance, cyber insurance, all of that. And then line 94, we have our operating transfer out. That every year we make a transfer to Fund 27 to cover the costs of the special education expenses. We are projecting that transfer to increase to Fund 27, which is pretty normal. But that is noted there. You also see it as a Fund 27 revenue, that same amount on the coming pages.
And we're making that shift because the state covers 33%, not 100% of special education needs. So the full cost, which we're picking up the rest of those costs. That's what that is.
And the last thing I wanna note on this page, the last line item, line 100, is our fund balance percentage of our Fund 10 expenditures, sitting at 35%, which again is a really good fund balance, healthy fund balance.
And what do you consider the start of a healthy 28%?
Like 25.
25%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book says 25.
Then Fund 27, I'll start to breeze through these next couple pages, since we're outside of Fund 10, but Fund 27 is our special education fund. This budget is balanced, you can see on line 11, we have a big chunk of that, or actually, sorry, line 10 is our transfer from Fund 10. That $5.6 million is the same as what you saw on the prior page. We do have increases built in here for our staff, obviously, with the salaries and benefits. On the next page, you can see our non-capital expenditures. We have increases for just the general supplies, equipment, subscriptions, all of those types of items are reflected in here. And again, Fund 27 is always going to be balanced. Fund 21 is our special revenue trust funds. It's all of our student athletics activities. They each have their own fund, but within here is the total of all of the activities and athletics throughout the district. It's always going to be balanced. We have that reflected in here. The next page is our debt service with Fund 30. So again, I just want to note that beginning and ending fund balance for 24-25 is a lot lower than it's been because of the defeasance. You don't have to levy for any debt payments. You have to make an interest payment, but that is a small amount compared to what we are normally paying each year. And then Fund 40 there's no activity, but eventually, once Fund 46 becomes real, you will see this part of this budget packet become more active.
We have a few years before we'll start putting serious money into 46. Maybe 3 years-ish. Maybe Caitlin and Matt and this committee.
Fund 46, for a reminder, is the fund we added to this
Yep.
year that the board approved
Yep.
to be able to plan for special projects. And
That's
we have a 5-year freeze.
It's a 5-year freeze, so it's essentially a public school rainy day fund, approved by the state, but it's aidable, which essentially means, for all practical purposes, that if money gets put into 46, the state counts it as if it's spent effectively. So that's the easier way to kind of understand the difference, because there's different ways to do it, but it's a way for us to capitalize on the revenue limit formula legally. And this is a relatively new vehicle, meaning 10 years ago it didn't exist-ish.
So it's in our favor on the equalization then?
Yeah.
Formula.
It's a benefit to the district. It's something Caitlin's been, I'm sure, thinking about it before I arrived, but it's something that she and I were talking about actively, actually since my onboarding. But it's the right move, but we have several years before we can, future boards will benefit greatly from that position.
The next page, we have Fund 50, which is our food service fund. Again, this is a balanced budget. We had a deficit budget reflected in line 13 last year. For those big ticket items, this year it is balanced. Fund 80 right below that, again, is seeing that $5 million bump in line 1. It's property taxes increasing by $5 million for Fund 80 for that project, which is then reflected as an expenditure in line 8.
That's the common rec.
All of our construction projects, once we start getting those invoices, will be coming out of line 8. And then the next page is, I'll go right to the bottom, which is our all funds, right, bringing all of that together. We have, as you can see, we have a balanced budget. The interfund transfer, you can see in line 12, $5.6 million. And that is all reflected in here, so. Moving to the next page, all of the information that you saw in section 2 is the same in section 3, just shown a little differently. So we can see, this is broken down by where we're spending our dollars as far as instruction, support services, within each fund. So I won't go too much into this, but if you have any questions as you start looking at these numbers, feel free to let me know.
Will this be the only budget that the construction will show up in for, so is it the Riverside stuff is for next year, or will both be impacted?
So
This year
both will
and
be
next year.
impacted. Riverside is coming out of the fund balance,
Okay.
So it's not in the budget,
Okay.
but that's gonna be in 24-25. CE and Rec, $5 million in 24-25, $3 million in 25.
And we'll have regular updates, and I think it's our next line item in this meeting. We'll start digging in a little bit on CE and Rec as well. We're actively having meetings, drawing meetings and schematics is our next meeting, I think tomorrow. Isn't it tomorrow? So things are moving quickly. A lot of work behind the scenes.
Do you remember how much money we had in contingency for that project?
It was 10%. I don't have it offhand, but I'd be happy to.
Roughly $800,000.
Yeah, it was at least that.
Yeah, I thought it was over.
It might have been more than that.
Yeah, I thought it was,
Yeah, they probably had soft goods in there too.
yes,
Yep.
yes.
So, yeah. And that money would just return back to Fund 80 then if not spent.
If it's not spent.
Correct.
We have some thoughts about that in the next line.
So then to bring it back to the slideshow, again, a couple things that we will need to know that we don't know right now before finalizing the budget and the levy, and the mill rate. Student count, which we find out on the third Friday, the equalization aid, which is in October, as well as the property valuation in October. And again, we will be diligent in communicating that to the board as we find that out. So next steps, we had the presentation to the committee today. I will be presenting this to the board July 22nd, before preliminary budget approval at the board meeting on August 12th. And that is all I have. Are there any questions?
I have one comment, if it's okay. Matt's really done an outstanding job in Caitlin's absence, regularly meeting with me about all these sorts of things, but it's really top notch. So we're gonna have Caitlin on maternity leave. We're very thankful to have Matt on the team as well.
Yeah, good job, thank you.
Matt,
Absolutely, thank you so much, you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Thank you.
We are blessed with a great business department.
Okay,
And-
so,
and I was just gonna say, and when are we expecting Caitlin?
So there's rumors that she may start coming in once a week starting next week.
Okay.
I don't know if she will actually do that.
She needs to talk to someone.
Alright, so we're gonna
Otherwise,
leave it as a rumor.
July
It's on record.
26th.
Let's move on.
okay,
July 26th.
Thank you.
alright. Awesome, alright, so moving, has everybody got their questions answered? Okay, so we're moving on to the next item for discussion. And that is owner's representative for CE and Rec / Riverside Building Project.
Let's
Did I-
give the
no?
proposal. Yeah, pull up the proposal there. I'll take this one. This, yeah, if you can make that.
Oh, sorry, I have another one.
For those visually challenged, there we go. That would be me I'm talking about. So this is a proposal, our law firm Ertoles recommended an approach for an owner's rep. And I'll just give an overview of what that means. There's usually one of a couple of ways you go about a project like this. Either you can have a general contractor, an owner's rep, or you're gonna pay somebody internally to do this sort of thing. So what is an owner's rep? It's essentially somebody who works directly for you, quite honestly, meaning the board and the district. And doesn't work for the architects, doesn't work for any of these other subcontractors, because we have got a lot of that going on right now. Doesn't work for me, but would report to and give reports to the board to update about how we're showing efficiencies, how we're looking, because I've done several building projects, and I know, Joel's done some, maybe some have done some in the public realm. A lot of what you'll get is, and we're seeing this right now, and we're coming to that point with a meeting tomorrow, where you have all these wonderful meetings, you have a lot of input, and they're great meetings. But the architects aren't there to really save the taxpayers' money. They're there to make business, and I can respect that. That's their job, right? All these different agencies, they have to make money. But an owner's rep and all the paperwork that you have in front of you is, I've worked with owners reps before, who they will cost some money, and I green lighted the small amount of dollars, I think it was, I green lighted the I green lighted the $6,500 because it was a small amount of money inside of the project, but we're recommending moving forward with services, typically about 1.85% of total project, but not to exceed, I think it's up to 2.35%. So this is several $100,000 that would come out of contingency. But one of the things with all the other paperwork that's in there for you to read, and the reason we're not going into it in detail is we're gonna be bringing the owner, the guy who did all this presentation. I'm just trying to be fully transparent about our desire to go in this direction and to spend some of that contingency and some of these related dollars to make sure that we're looking for every efficiency possible in a project that's gonna have multiple subcontractors, because that's just how it works. You're gonna have all these different groups and agencies and contracts. He's already doing some services for us to make sure that all the contracts with the village and the lawyers and all these sorts of things are handled. And once again, our law firm, this was a recommendation from our law firm, this particular company, who comes with great references, with WeCheck, with a lot of local school districts, including Waukesha and several others, all listed on this information, it's all right there. for you to read and for everybody to read. So one of the things that we'd like to do at a future meeting, with this group, or what were we thinking, Matt, with that?
We were thinking the next committee meeting,
Yeah,
Kurt, his name is Kurt Weebelhaus, he would come and present all of his services to you first before going to the full board. We were hoping the next committee meeting would be a good time for him to come in, kind of explain, and this is directly tied to the CD rec project.
yes.
The owner's rep, how Atolis explained it to me, is that the owner's rep is the attorney for the construction and invoicing side of it. So he's looking line by line at every invoice that we pay to make sure we're not getting double paid, we're not getting charged for things that our contract said that we will not be charged for. It's another set of eyes and another team member that attends meetings and goes through every piece of the construction project with us.
I'll give you an example of how I used a general contractor and owner's rep in a build that I did when I was a principal. We had a 21.6 million of a total $38 million deal or something like that. 21 million was going into my building at the time. And the owner's rep was sitting next to me and he goes, "Munoz, chandelier, you don't need the chandelier." And I'm like, "Chandelier?" I'm like, okay. So I'm looking down and there was a $75,000 chandelier in this high school, this library that I was building. It's a beautiful library, but it does not have a chandelier to this day. So, you cut that out. But then there's other things as well from the building side that you wanna make sure that the district is managed properly. So in this, I wasn't sure as we were coming through if the architects can do this as well.
That's my question, is why is this not
Yep.
including their services?
It could be, but it's usually, we wanna keep some separation between the architectural firm, who's one of the contractors, and somebody who does this sort of things for a living. In other words, somebody who is actively managing this exact sort of process in public schools all over the place. This is pretty common. But the questions that you have, like, it's better to hear directly from the source, because the money that we would pay him, all this documentation you're gonna see here, that almost in all circumstances, in many if not all of the circumstances, the fees that we would pay the owner's rep is made up for in savings. And that's a lot of the things in the paperwork that you see here. Most of this is a representation of how financially it's beneficial to have somebody this dialed in to this many public dollars flowing in and out. Like I said, he does this sort of thing for a lot of school districts in the area, and comes recommended. So it's worth reading in detail as a board about this. And we recommend it because of the financial and now that we have the contingency built up the way that it is, I really don't think we're gonna eat into it that much to make sure that we already have the cost savings built in.
So I understand the concept.
Go ahead.
It's sort of like insurance on making sure things run properly. You answered the ROI question, like obviously it costs $6,500, what would our hope or expectations be?
It costs more than 65, that's just our upfront fee.
It costs a lot more than $6,500.
Yeah, it's only 2% of the project.
I've already greenlight the $6,500 because it was a very small amount of money in order to get him working on some initial contracts. But that did not commit us. I didn't commit the board, I didn't commit the district to anything
So you
beyond.
approve the first step, we still have to make a motion on the second
Yep.
step.
So I didn't commit the board beyond the initial small amount of dollars.
I mean, I would've liked to see this at the time of when we approved the whole project, right?
Mhm.
Cause I mean, I think you and I talked about that contingency plan being low, and now we're gonna shoot 2% of it already. That's not a good feeling to me, especially when the architect should be doing this in collaboration with someone from the school district to make sure, hey, I mean, I don't expect the school district to sit back and just let them do it, we need to be engaged in that.
Right,
I do think that the cost for this owner's rep could be supported in Fund 80, aside from the contingency. Just as a note. I don't think it has to come
yeah,
from the contingency.
I mean, we're talking about $3.6 million of
What?
our spend.
No,
No,
so
no, no, no,
so
no, no.
this, These, I had asked about, like, you talk about all these savings that you provide, can you show me examples? So he had sent me
These are examples.
two referendums of line item by line item of what he did to be able to provide this district, which he's blanked out, with savings of 2.3 million, with savings of 3.6 million. Now, these projects are probably $60-70 million,
Significantly more than our
Right.
but his
8
fee
million.
was probably less than that or close to that, depending on the district, I don't remember which one it was, but something that we thought was worth bringing up and considering.
Figure $180,000 to $200,000 ish. That's ballpark.
Yeah.
But it's why we're talking to the committee, it's why this is discussion. There are other ways to go about this, those are mostly example documents.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's important to talk to the gentleman, especially since our law firm recommended it. Because our law firm was involved in working on some of the documents.
Yeah.
Cause there's some complicated,
There's a 115-page contract that he's currently reviewing right now, that we would, I mean, we could do it, but we don't know every single line item, or every single page of these construction documents, where this guy does it for a living. So,
there's some complicated transfers and legal things that need to be accomplished. Given that CE and Rec and the village, meaning the district and the village, currently jointly own quite a bit of things over there, and that's about to change for the first time in the history of this district. So there's property transfers, there's quite a bit there, so this is information, these are good questions. These are good comments, these are good thoughts, but it may be supported, not even touching contingency. We're just not sure yet, but we would be sure by the next meeting. We would be more dialed in by the time we would bring the gentleman back.
I mean, I hear if we don't touch contingency, but then yet we had a budget balance already. So how would you throw $200,000 or almost $200,000 at that and still be balanced?
Well, I think he's likely to come up with a good portion, if not all of it, in savings.
So that becomes neutral.
But it may not be.
I think we would still be
It's-
balanced.
That's a risk.
I don't know, I mean, I think Matt is very good at, school district fund accounting. I think, and so is Caitlin. I don't wanna speak for either of them, but I'm not sure if they're construction accountants.
But that's
Or
only
whether,
architects though.
well, yeah, but the architects are also gonna,
They're invoicing.
they're also invoicing for their
Yeah, but
services and
they know their budgets and
so, I mean,
If-
I can see the value, I'm not saying I'm approving that, but I can say, I can see why this is being brought up and that it's a very good discussion that we're having.
We could, I mean, there could be other options like general contractor.
That's where my head was at, is we have a general contractor, there's multiple parties on this. Is this the general contractor, cause they're the ones that are responsible for all the subs, accountant being, or architect being separate. But again, I think part of it is, this is newish, I don't know the last time we went through a construction project in this district, so.
And this is a, I would say, small to low mid, by no means is it a massive project.
And that's what I looked at when I looked at this, I think part of it is there's a pressure point of where this maybe makes sense. I don't know what our risk is because it's a smaller project, if you are expecting a lower
Yeah, I only bring
rate.
up contingency because that's worst case scenario to use that for this. You know, Matt and I did talk about it just coming out of the 80, the way that 80 is expanded, out of balance. We talked about that and we talked about contingency, but the first step was making sure that you were aware that I greenlighted a very small part of this. And really what the gentleman is probably doing, if I'm guessing, if I were in his situation, is developing some work for us, so when he comes here to speak to you, to show, hey, this is who I am, so he can answer these sorts of things. Like I said, this isn't a fly-by-night company. They do this for Pewaukee, for Tosa, for Waukesha, for multiple districts that we know and that we know people in. So,
We also, for our last, because I asked Chris Carlton, is in the last couple referendums that we used an owner's rep, it said both times we used an owner's rep. So those are bigger ticket projects, but
Yeah.
it's not a new thing to
Yeah,
calls, but
It's,
smaller projects.
it's worth considering. I've always used owners reps or, some sort of paid somebody a lawyer, somebody to watch these sorts of things. It's more of a fiscal responsibility thing. Most of the documents you have here are him showing work. They're not what it's gonna cost us, cause he's got some major projects up there. And he's got a very, very good reputation and some major project experience. He's essentially showing us,
Here's the report we'd be reviewing.
here's how I have saved many districts in this area, and what the value of an owner's representative is.
Back to what Joel said, and again, I know we looked at numbers, part of those numbers were put together by the third-party entities that we're contracting with. But it would have been nice to be able to see a line item somewhere in there for owner's rep, so that it would have been able to look at the complete package.
I mean, yeah, if it's $6,500, I'm like, whatever, but you're talking about $200,000.
And I missed that part, so I appreciate the
Yeah,
It's a good,
clarification.
that does not sit well with me. I'd have to see really good value. I mean, this is all what if he could save us this. It's not saying he's gonna save us this. And
Correct.
so it makes an insurance policy.
correct.
And as far as reviewing contracts on that, I only feel comfortable with legal reviewing contracts, not a guy who, may know about contracts, but he's not legal.
Our attorneys will still be reviewing that.
Well, and I assume they would, right?
He's looking for different things than they are.
Sure. It's, I mean, and then the other thing is I would like to see, what the architect and our general contractor offer compared to, in conjunction with this. I mean, I would think our general contractors and our architects, if they want repeat business in the future, they would look out for the best interest of the school district, right? That would be my expectation of them. I mean, yeah, $200,000 is a hard pill to swallow for me.
Like I said, this is discussion. There was no rush at this point, because I had greenlighted the small amount of money so that we could get through some of the 115-page initial barrage of documents. But we'll bring it back, to a future meeting and then dig into it a little bit more.
And we have a little time on this, right?
We do,
Okay.
we do.
He said that he wouldn't, if we were to have him come on, he wouldn't start until late July, August, so there's time,
Okay.
he could be past that too, if for some reason
Okay.
we wanna wait on it.
And if he comes back, it will be at this committee level, right?
Yes. And then he's also open to talking to the board.
Yes.
'Cause he
I was
was-
just gonna say, maybe at that meeting, when he's coming to present, we open up the invitation to the rest of the board.
Yeah.
So that they can understand the implications to the overall plan.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and then, the last item for discussion is a certified staffing update. Leah.
I want to do an even more updated one from the one that got posted, because we had a lot happen over the weekend.
Mhm.
Well, maybe not a lot, but good things happening over the weekend. So, the literacy coach, is still in the interview stages. I believe it's happening this week
Yep, that's what I heard.
for North Middle School. The change between, the attachments, is, the 5K at Shady Lane, that's the Ashley Dahlman, with Emily Futter coming in. And then, we were very thankful and quite honestly, even though Brandon is leaving us in the midnight hour, he pulled together the interview to get our business teacher, because we had a brand new applicant for a licensed business teacher. He called him same day as applied, got him in for an interview, and he signed and will be working with us. So I do really wanna thank Brandon for literally working until his last day of contracted employment on interviews to get this person secured for us, so I do appreciate that, so we're very happy about that.
And because Mrs. Kovars was out of the country for a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, so Jerry wasn't available, so Brandon, we do appreciate that. And then, we just also got the contract back, from, I don't know, what's her name, Jennifer? Abraminko for special ed teacher at BF. So those are the ones that just happened over the weekend. I would say things are going really well. We also just had a new occupational therapist apply, and Alice is on that immediately and already has the person scheduled within 2 days of them applying for the job. So we're happy about that. So we're in a pretty good place. We still have a few specialized services hires to go, but things are moving along well, and just very appreciative of all of our, who I call hiring managers, people who are the supervisors of these positions, for really going in there every day and paying attention. And to Julie on my team, who looks multiple times a day to see if we have any new applicants, and then immediately texts or calls the principals and other managers to let them know somebody's in there. So we're staying very closely on top of it, and we're really excited about the new group that's coming in.
James McMahon, he's coming back, right?
Yeah, so
Okay,
he
so it's
filled
not an
his own
error.
vacancy.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you know, doesn't say it? Okay, no, good.
so how are we sitting this year versus last year?
Oh,
I mean, generally speaking,
well, I mean, we
at
have
this
like
time
less
last
than,
year,
oh, we had like 48 on this sheet,
Last year.
yeah. And like I said, so the ones at the top, those are brand new positions added this year, so I'm not even counting those. So for what you see in that next section, we had 48, and that's our down 1, 2.
I see that one leave of absence, one move to admin position,
yep, that was Alec.
2 leave of absence.
So here we have 21, but quite honestly, in my reports, I wouldn't really be counting Travis because he's staying within the district, taking a new position. I wouldn't be counting
James.
Alex Ham, she is looking to come back. Alec, I wouldn't normally count because he promoted within district. And then same thing with Jeff Petroff. Those are ones that, we would actually subtract from our reporting because they're just moves within the district. This is the sheet that is everything that's happening with all the names that are moving around or coming into the district. But we probably have 17 versus 48 to last year, so we're very thankful for that. And the hiring process has gone very smoothly this year. So hopefully by the next time we meet, we'll have a lot more filled in and nothing,
Hopefully all done,
fingers crossed, nothing left open.
hopefully all done, we're close.
Hopefully all done.
Very close. That's great.
Good.
Okay, any other comments or questions on that item? Alright, well, with that, we come to the end of our meeting and I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
And I will second.
Alright, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
Are you going?